The Raiders were embarrassed in D.C. How did it go wrong? Why did it go wrong? And more importantly, is it fixable? That plus more on Monday's edition of the Locked On Raiders podcast for September 22nd, 2025.
You are Locked On Raiders, your daily Las Vegas Raiders podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome in, Raider Nation, to another edition of the Locked On Raiders podcast. Thank you so much for making the show your first listen of the day. Definitely appreciate you. If you're catching the show wherever you find your favorite podcast, or you're checking us out by way of the YouTube page, you know we appreciate both. Show continues to grow each and every day because of your support and the great job that my man Ari does behind the scenes, making sure we look good and sound good each and every day. We definitely shout him out. He's on Twitter at Ari Produces. I'm on Twitter as well, at your boy Q254. And we got the Locked On Raider podcast voicemail line for you at 707-654-4693. We'll get back to your calls and texts. Plenty of feedback after the Raiders get embarrassed in D.C. So there's plenty of feedback that will go with that game, as you can imagine. So we'll try to get as many calls and texts in as we close out the show. Segment number 3. Segment number 2, we'll talk about the big elephant in the room, the biggest issue that the Raiders have, which is the most important one, really. It's not the quarterback, the offensive line. The offensive line is terrible. I mean, I think there's no other way to put it. Right now, they are terrible. Jackson Powers-Johnson returned, but he didn't return, right? He cleared a concussion protocol, but did not play. They had Alex Kappa in there. But we'll deep dive all things Raiders offensive line. We'll do that segment number 2 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Here in segment number 1, news and notes of the day, and it really just has to do with the game, just how it all unfolded, and we'll jump into that after I tell you about the title sponsor of the show, which is Mazda. Mazda sweats every single detail, just like the players, because when you make every move count, pulling off the unexpected is only the beginning. Stay tuned later for highlights in this week's Moving the Game Forward. Mazda, move and be moved. So let's go ahead and jump right into it, man. I don't know what happened. The one thing I was excited about with this coaching staff with Pete Carroll is that this team is always going to compete. This team is going to fight, scratch, claw. They're not going to win every game. We know that. But they're always going to be in these games. And then Sunday happened, and they weren't in the game at all. Matter of fact, it was over from the beginning, right? The opening kickoff. It's funny. One of my keys to victory that I rolled out on Friday's show was, hey, if you win the coin toss, get the ball to the Commanders, the first or the second half, come out of the locker room and have that opportunity. Well, they did that, and it was still over from the beginning. Like, you could just tell from the opening kickoff. They kick off, Deebo Samuel returns at 69 yards and sets them up for their first score of the day, right? It's just you could tell from the beginning, and it's wild because normally the Raiders and their special teams unit is a good special teams unit, but on Sunday it wasn't. Right? There was multiple returns that were big-time returns. There was a couple that the Raiders got fortunate, and there were some penalties thrown on Washington, so they didn't pick up the big-time numbers, but they returned one to the house, a punt, returned that one to the house, and then they had the opening kickoff where Deebo Samuel set the tone by returning at 69 yards. Like, that already gave me a sign of, okay, this could be one of these long days at the office. But with that being said, I still trusted this coaching staff and these players to go out there and play the way that we're used to seeing them play, which is at least compete at a high level. Again, if you come up short, you come up short. But just to really seem like you were never in the game. I mean, 41-24 is the final score, and Raider Nation, it didn't even feel like it was that close as far as I'm concerned. Geno Smith on the day, if you're just looking at the numbers, if you open up the box score, you're like, oh, man, he was efficient. That's what he wanted to do. 19 for 29, 289 yards, 3 touchdowns. Oh, wait, he got sacked 5 times. 5. Yeah, that, and it looked like he probably should have been sacked about 10, right? I know he got hit 8 times, but I mean, he was hurried almost every time he dropped back. He was running for his life, and he made some things happen, so you got to give him credit for that. He didn't turn the ball over, so you got to give him credit for that, but man, 5 sacks. And of course, we're going to talk about that offensive line in great detail coming up in segment number 2. Ashton Jeanty, we always want to see, is he going to get going? How do you get the young rookie going? Well, he got more touches. Last week he had 11. This time he's at 17. Got 63 yards. Okay, that's cool. But he didn't have any kind of holes at all. I mean, every single time that they handed him the ball, he was trying to juke somebody, or 2, or 3. It felt like someone was grabbing him in an attempt to make the tackle immediately. As soon as they put the ball in his belly, boom, there you go. He didn't have, like I said, he didn't really have any opportunity, and he made some things happen. Still 63 yards, still hasn't had that breakout, but you got so many people talking about he's a bust, he's this, that, and the other, he's not a good player. He's a great player, right? I think he's going to be a fantastic talent, but he's going to have to get offensive line. They're going to have to do something. They're going to have to put some work in as well. If not, then, well, it's going to be tough sledding for Ashton Jeanty or anyone else trying to run the rock. Trey Tucker, he was a bright spot as far as the receiving core goes. 8 catches, I should say, 3 touchdowns, 145 yards. I'll take that. Trey, I got to give him a lot of credit for everything he was able to do, right? He just kept running past guys, and then he would make himself available in the middle of the field. I mean, he was becoming a guy that is very reliable for Geno Smith to throw the rock to, and that's something that we started to see develop in training camp. I don't know how many shows I came back here and said, man, Trey Tucker is getting involved. They like him. They're going to get him involved in the offense. They're going to get him the rock. Well, 8 catches, 145 yards, 3 touchdowns. Definitely getting him the rock. And a couple of them were just Commanders thought that they had a certain defense. They didn't. They looked up, and Trey Tucker's behind him. And all Geno has to do is put him on the numbers, and he walked into the end zone. That's what he was able to do. So big ups to him. But obviously in a losing effort, you want to get excited because he had his career day. But, man, the Raiders got blown out in such a bad way. And the defense, which was the strength of the team, I've been talking about how, man, this defense is surprising me as good as it is. Their rushing defense is really good. They're not allowing opponents to get loose. Okay, well, that was until Sunday, right? So, again, you never know how good you are when you're winning. You never know really how bad you are when you're losing, right? It's never as high as it might look, as good as it might look, and it's really never as low or as bad as it might look. So Marcus Mariota stepped in for Jaden Daniels. Had a decent day, 15 for 21, 209 yards and a touchdown, and then he ran for a touchdown as well. But it's the ground game for the Commanders. They almost ran for as many yards as Mariota threw for. They ran for 201 yards. There hadn't been a 100-yard rusher against the Raiders through the first 2 weeks, right? They were only allowing 70 yards a game on the ground. They had 179, they being the Commanders. They had 179 in the first half. That is just wild. That's something I definitely didn't expect to see. Max Crosby did get a sack. He was, he did some good things. He got some pressures. There were some holding calls on the Commanders' offensive line from multiple times, multiple reasons. Having Max Crosby do what he does, and that's good. Thomas Booker, he made a nice play, forcing a Mariota fumble on a heck of a little scramble by Marcus. It was actually a designed run, and Thomas Booker down the field, boom, knocks the ball out. Caillou Blue Kelly recovers it, gets the ball back to the silver and black, but clearly they weren't able to do too much with it. I don't know. I don't know where the biggest issue was, but it just felt like one of those 2, 3, 4 years ago, 10 a.m. Pacific time kickoffs for the Raiders. One of those where they got to fly east, and they just never, they're like sleepwalking, right? They hadn't had that in a while. I've been saying it feels like that's been cleaned up. It didn't feel cleaned up on Sunday. And I don't want to make excuses, right? I'm not in the excuse-making business, but, I know they played on Monday. I know the Commanders had basically a mini bye because they hadn't played since last Thursday. So they had all these days off, and the Raiders didn't have much. So maybe that was it. But then again, to have the kind of travel schedule that the Raiders had early in the season, you should. I feel like you should still be able to overcome that early in the season. Now, later in the season, when you're just dog-tired trying to get to the finish line, I get it. But to me, it just felt like they never got off the bus. They never got off the plane. They never left Vegas. It was a bad day to have a bad day for the silver and black. Matter of fact, I got a couple minutes here of Pete Carroll when he talked after the game. Vinny Bonsignore asked him a question about the offensive line, which we'll talk about in segment number 2. JPJ not starting. He cleared concussion protocol, but Alex Cappa was still the guy at the right guard spot, and then not bouncing back from Monday night's loss to the Chargers. So here's a couple minutes with Pete Carroll.
Third game where the offensive line has kind of struggled, and what do you chalk that up to, and what kind of solutions can there be out there?
Well, we have to, it turns us back to we got to balance out what we're doing so we can mix better. And we didn't run the football at all early. And then when we did, we drove the football. We made our scores. So once we got going, I thought Ashton did a really good job with his opportunities. He got a lot of carries today. It was a good ball game for him. It was tough, and he played tough and showed you how he does it. But we didn't start out well at all. We came out of the chutes, hurting. And so until we got going, you couldn't see much. But we do have to mix better so that we feel the run and the pass mix that gives us an advantage instead of feeling like we're getting knocked around.
What went to the decision to start Alex Cappa at right guard over JP?
Just that it was a short week, and he just got back, and we'll give Alex a chance to go again and see how that goes. And he was available to play, but we just decided for the continuity for coming out of last week, it might be a little bit smoother, and we didn't hit any of these days this week, and so it just felt like this was a better choice to go that way. And the competition goes on.
You said not bouncing back from the Monday night game. Do you think physically, mentally, all of it? How did
Well,
where
it,
did you see
it looked
that?
like that. That's what it felt like. It felt like we did not get back. We had a terrific practice on Thursday, and it felt like that we had bounced. And so we adjusted to make sure to get to game time, knowing that these guys, they were going to have all the rest that they needed, and we needed to get as rested as we could and make sure that we would be strong and ready to go. But it didn't work out. And if it did, you'd have seen it. So I didn't handle that as well as I need to.
So, yeah, I think that just looking at the body language and even some of the answers from Pete Carroll, it just felt like even he was surprised that the Raiders went out and had a performance like this. I think Hondo asked him a question, did you see this coming? It's like, no. If I saw that coming, I would have done something, right? And that's what they got to do. And we talk about, the loss to the Chargers and how you have to learn from it and move on. This is one where you may just have to flush it. You may have to flush it and say, hey, I don't even know who that team was out there. I did not expect to see that from a Pete Carroll team. I did not expect to come back on the show following a game and saying that was embarrassing. But when you lose 41-24 and it doesn't even feel like it's that close, that's exactly what it is. It's embarrassing. And what was the biggest embarrassment? The offensive line. We talk all things offensive line coming up in segment number 2 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Before we get to that, though, I do want to tell you about PrizePicks. What's PrizePicks? It's the daily fantasy app where making the right call can actually pay off. You and I, we make decisions every day, but on PrizePicks, being right means you're cashing in. With football back, PrizePicks is the simplest and fastest way to get in on the action. Just pick more or less on 2 to 6 player projections, and you can turn your takes into real prizes, all in less than 60 seconds. It's quick, it's easy, and really, it's a way that a lot of people can stay up on all the action around the league, not just with their favorite team, right? It's one thing to know everything that your favorite team is doing, but to be able to know what all these other players are doing and all these other teams are doing because you're playing PrizePicks and you're keeping up with everything, that puts you ahead of the game. Right now, download the PrizePicks app today. Use the promo code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's promo code LOCKEDONNFL for $50 in lineups after your first $5 play. PrizePicks, it's good to be right. All right, Raider Nation, here we go. Segment number 2 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Time to talk about the big elephant in the room, the offensive line and how bad it was. We've been talking about the offensive line. Well, actually, before Ashton Jeanty even got drafted, we were talking about the offensive line. Remember, the big conversation was, do the Raiders have the offensive line to maximize the talents of Ashton Jeanty? We debated that and debated that and debated that. And obviously, the Raiders went out and drafted Jeanty. Fine. Again, still not I'm not complaining about that. I'm not saying that was a bad decision. I think Jeanty is a fantastic player. I think he's going to be a fantastic player. We know how talented he is. But now comes the offensive line. And how do you clean this mess up? Jeanty ran the ball 17 times for 63 yards. But check this out. You want to know how bad the offensive line was on Sunday and has been so far this year, really? This is from Ryan McFadden from ESPN. Raiders running back Ashton Jeanty was hit at or behind the line of scrimmage on 11 of his 17 rushes versus Washington. 11 of the 17 carries. So only 6 times did he actually get the ball and not have a defender right there hitting him and him trying to shake out of a tackle. Only 6 times. And you remember week 1, right, when he only had 38 yards, but he ran for 44 yards but got credited for 38 yards? That goes back to the offensive line. And I know in week 1, I know there was a few struggles that he had. There's a couple times where he missed a hole here, missed a hole there, but there's just no holes. It's just not. It's really, really bad. He goes on to say, Jeanty has now been hit at or behind the line on 57% of his rushing attempts this season, 27 of 47. So more than 50% of the time when he gets the ball, someone's getting him. Right. And so you can't judge him and say he's not a good back. Oh, the Raiders made the wrong choice. They just have to service the offensive line. They've got to get the right guys in place. And, we meet with Pete Carroll today. It's got to be asked again about the decision with the offensive line. I know what he said. You heard it there in segment number 1, what he said about why Alex Kappa was in there. But why was he in there the whole game? Right? It's not like he was getting better. At some point, I feel like you just have to make a change. If you have to make a change in the game, you do. Hey, this ain't working. Kappa, you're out. JPJ, you're in. And I know that Kappa wasn't the only issue on Sunday, but it's not looking good. Colton Miller, feel good about him at the left tackle spot. Parham, I feel like, has been struggling so far this year. Meredith, I think everyone's kind of hot and cold on him at the center spot. JPJ, played 1 game, and then he's missed the last 2, and then DJ Glaze. And DJ Glaze, he's not really lighting it up either. There was no real, we talk about competition all the time. There was no real competition for his job. They have Charles Grant, Caleb Rogers. We know Kappa, Stone Forsythe, and Will Putnam, right? So they don't have some all of a sudden A1 top list, number one offensive line in the league waiting out back at the Intermountain Health Performance Center. Like, you can't just go and swap somebody out, swap an offensive line out like that commercial, that TV commercial where the kid ain't smiling. So they got Tommy DeVito in there, and the mom's like, all right, DeVito, you're in. And he's sitting down there, and they're taking pictures, and you don't have a sub like that. You can't. All right, you have these guys. That's who your offensive line is going to be. One of the biggest things that we talked about all summer long, even in training camp, was got to figure out who your starting five is going to be as quickly as possible so you can build that continuity. And I know, and we call Lincoln Kennedy Professor Kennedy for a reason. He keeps telling me that it's reps. That's what they need, and I get that. But at the same time, I don't know how talented this line is, right? You can have all the reps you want, but do you have any talent? And right now, it doesn't look like that offensive line is worth the salt. I don't know if this is fixable, right? Look, Brendan Carroll's got to figure something out. Joe Philbin, he's a longtime offensive line coach. He's had a lot of success. He's got to, maybe put a little bit more attention to detail on it while I don't know. I don't know what the solution is. Maybe JPJ at center is the solution. So you have to shake something up. And I hate saying shake anything up with the offensive line because, again, it goes back to you want continuity. But it can't look like it looked on Sunday. It can't. You have to figure something out. That would be, irresponsible, careless, reckless even, if you don't correct that offensive line. You just keep rolling those same guys out there and think that it's going to get better just because they have more snaps with each other, right? It might get a little bit better, but it ain't going to get not a lot better, not like that. So Miller, Parham, Meredith, JPJ, DJ Glaze, that's the starting five right now. Again, if you got to put JPJ at center, put Parham back at right guard, and put Meredith at left guard, okay, cool, right? Then it's the same offensive line you had last year. And, they're running the zone blocking scheme. I've never been a big fan of that, but their bodies aren't really built to be a power blocking scheme team, right? You need the leaner guys, the guys that are a little bit more athletic. And I think that, Parham may be the heaviest guy on the offensive line right now. So it's maybe he's not. He's probably like the second. But either way you look at it, it's not. They're not really built to be a power blocking scheme. It's something I actually asked Lincoln about the other day. I was like, for some reason, man, I never have liked it when the Raiders go heavy zone blocking scheme on the offensive line. Never seems to work out well for the silver and black. But you can't have Geno Smith running for his life. There's no chance to him ever to be able to settle in and get the ball to his playmakers. And they got plenty of playmakers. Brock Bowers, he's out there, even though he's hobbled. We saw Big Mike go down with a concussion, which was pretty scary. I'm glad to see him walk off the field on his own. That was good. But, man, that was scary when he was laid out on that turf out there. I was thinking, oh, no, you don't want that. But they still, they had Jacoby Myers. Obviously, Trey Tucker had a fantastic game. Genty is a talent. It doesn't matter who's running. Zamir White, any of these guys. Raheem Mostert, another healthy scratch. Doesn't matter who's going to be, running behind that O-line if it doesn't get cleaned up. So that'll be the point of emphasis, at least for me this week, as the Raiders prepare for Chicago coming to town. I don't know if you saw the Bears and Cowboys game. Bears look really good. They look really good on Sunday. So, yeah, good luck with this one, Raiders. Good luck with this one, right? You're on a 2-game losing streak right now. You'd hate to extend that to a 3-game losing streak. They got to find a way this week in the lab to work on the offensive line, get it where it needs to be, and get ready for a very tough Bears, at least offensive attack. And their defense looked pretty sticking good as well against the Dallas Cowboys. So, again, you're never as good as you look, and you're never as bad as you look. You're somewhere in the middle. So who is this Raiders team going to be? Like I said, Brendan Carroll, Joe Philbin, Pete Carroll, they all have a lot of questions to answer about that offensive line, and we will talk to Pete Carroll later on this morning. Coming up in segment number 3, your calls and texts, so, whatever you got, all the feedback, man, 707-654-4693. We'll close out the show hearing from you. Before I get to that, though, I do want to tell you about a couple of great sponsors here on the show, including the title sponsor, which is Mazda, moving the game forward. For those who believe it's not just about playing the game, it's about redefining it. There are moments that do more than put points on the board. They move crowds, they move culture, and keep moving the game forward. This week's moment that moved the game forward is, well, let's see. Can't talk about the win because they got blown out. Can't talk about the defense stopping the Commanders from running because they didn't. Ashton Genty didn't get over the 100-yard mark. We'll talk about Trey Tucker. How about Trey Tucker? He definitely moved the game forward and is moving this offense forward if the offensive line that we just spent a segment talking about can clean up their act. But now that you see he could be a legit wide receiver with those 8 catches, 145 and 3 touchdowns, that's definitely moving the offense forward, which entails moves the team and moves the organization forward as well. So when you follow what moves you, the unexpected is only the beginning. And just like there's more to every highlight, there's more to a Mazda vehicle. Mazda, move and be moved. I also want to tell you about FanDuel. The NFL season's here. FanDuel's making sure you're ready for kickoff with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Folks love using FanDuel because it fits however you like to bet, with player props, building the same game parlay, or even jumping in live as the action unfolds. It makes every game more exciting. Whether you're watching your team or just keeping an eye on your fantasy lineup, it's quick, easy, and the best way to add a little bit more energy to Sundays. So, are you ready to play? Of course you are. Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet. Here we go, Raider Nation. Segment number 3 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Your calls and texts. You're off that Locked On Raider podcast voicemail line, 707-654-4693. Trust and believe there's plenty of calls and texts to get to here on the show. We'll start off with my guy, Mikey the Barber. I actually wanted to get his call into segment number 2 because it was all about the offensive line, and it just really reiterated how bad it was and their performance was on Sunday. But I ran out of time because, well, I was talking about how bad the offensive line is. So we'll start with my guy, Mikey the Barber in Sacramento.
Q, what up, man? It's Mikey the Barber. Watching the game, there's about 10 minutes left, something like that, and I just wanted to call just to get this off my chest while it's fresh. The offensive line is straight garbage. Basura. We need to put JPJ at center, please. If there's any way you could talk to Mark Davis so that he could pass it down to John Spytek, so he could pass it down to Pete Carroll and Chip Kelly, that would be awesome. Pull some strings, my man, because this offensive line looks like dog shit, and they're not giving Genty any holes, any push, nothing. He's still getting yards after contact. I know there's something there. He's a special back. We just need to give him a few little holes, and we can make something happen. But right now, this is looking very atrocious. This game is depressing the hell out of me. Anyways, man, hopefully we could turn it around next week. All right. Peace.
Mikey, thanks for the call. Definitely appreciate you. And I mean, yeah, again, that's why I spent a whole segment talking about the offensive line, because that has to be cleaned up. If that doesn't get cleaned up, it's going to be a long season for the Silver and Black. Up next, got a text from Union Raider from the 702. What's up, Q? It's Union Raider from the 702. I'm going to make this short and sweet. We're going to be in for a long year as long as we can't tackle or block. And maybe just don't run up the middle every single time. Be easy, Q, and go Raiders. That's from Union Raider from the 702. And, yeah, that's one thing I didn't even really talk about in segment number 1. The missed tackles reappeared. Again, it felt like one of those old traditional Raider 10 a.m. Pacific time kickoffs. Just one of those games that they basically no-show. And I definitely did not believe that was going to happen under Pete Carroll. I thought those days were long gone. And unfortunately, in week 3, we get to see it. And again, what you're talking about, the blocking, going back to the O-line, that's got to get fixed. I don't know how they're going to fix it. That's for them to figure out, not me. Maybe some lineup changes have to happen, but it's not like they'll have a bunch of Hall of Fame guards and tackles sitting there waiting on deck just to get into the game. So that could be an issue for sure moving forward. Thanks so much for the text. I appreciate you. Up next, got a call from Autumn Wynn in D.C. He's calling to talk about the disappointing game, and he was there at that disappointing game. Here he is, Autumn Wynn.
Raider Nation, Q, everyone. I'm in Washington right now. This is the Autumn Wynn out of Southwest Harbor, but I'm in Washington right now after disappointing loss, boys. Call me a new booty. Call me what you want. I've tried a few times before. That being said, man, disappointing. I don't know what else to say, guys. I love my team. I got love for them for the rest of my life. Win, lose, or tie, Raider till we die. You know what I mean? But boys, that was a tough loss. I was in the dream sheet section. I was right there, 3 rows back watching that. Watching Chip Kelly just throw the ball continuously on first down and then decide he wants to run it after maybe getting a sack or losing a couple yards on first down. I don't know. I'm frustrated, but I'm a Raider. Raider Nation, I love y'all. Chin up. You, Ari, thank you for everything. I'll keep it short, keep it sweet. Appreciate y'all. Raider Nation, one love.
Thank you so much for the call, my man. Definitely appreciate you. And, yeah, disappointing is a word to describe the game. Disappointing for sure, right? Frustrating, embarrassing. Those are a couple more choice words, right? There's other choice words, but it's a family-friendly show, so I want to make sure that I maintain, even though my guy Mikey the Barber had to get a little loose because, that's what Mikey the Barber does. So I ain't mad at him. But, yeah, embarrassing, frustrated, disappointed, and really out of all of it, I'm shocked, more shocked to see the Raiders go out there and play the way that they did on Sunday. Thanks so much for the call. Definitely appreciate you. Up next, got a quick text from LA Raider Steve. Q, the Raiders made backup quarterback Marcus Mariota look like the Oregon Duck Heisman winner again. That's LA Raider Steve. And I don't know if he looked that good. He did only throw for a couple hundred yards, but, it didn't look like there was too much of a drop-off. He obviously didn't run the same RPO game as Jaden Daniels was, but he was good, and he still was able to run some to keep the Raiders' defense honest. But in general, the Raiders as a team weren't honest with themselves. They were bad. Really bad performance from that team on Sunday. That is for sure. Thanks so much for the text. Definitely appreciate you. And we'll close out with a call from 305 Key. He's calling to talk about Kimani's game and has a very unique tie-in with Kimani's birthday, which is September 19th. Here's 305 Key.
What's up, Q? It's 305 Key. And I'm sure you got a million angry, disgruntled, upset, unhappy Raider fans calling in for that terrible lackluster showing today. But, yeah, we played bad, and I hope we get it together. But I'm calling for a different reason. Been listening to the show for a while now, and, I know all about the Kimani game. September 19th, the Kimani game. And I finally decided to call in and share my thoughts about the Kimani game. So, September 19th also is a special day for me as well, brother. That was my father's birthday. And he passed away about 15 years now, I think. So, in honor of his birthday, my wife and I got married on September 19th. So, we got married on that day. So that's kind of like, like a bittersweet day, but it brings forth a positive, memory on that day. And then years later, I met a gentleman who reminded me so much of my dad. I'm not going to say he was a father figure to me, but he had mannerisms. We are pretty close now. He had mannerisms like my dad. He actually resembled my dad. And come to find out, his birthday and his anniversary on September 19th. So September 19th is a special day I see for quite a few of us, and I just figured I'd share that little tidbit. Maybe it'll bring some cheer. I don't know, happy heavenly birthday to Kamani, but hopefully it'll bring some sort of positive juju to this dreary Sunday. But that's it, Q. Until next time, just win, baby.
305 Key, fantastic way to close out the show, man. Thank you for that call. That's awesome. I love how you were able to tie together September 19th with your pops, with the day you got married, with your new father figure, right? And obviously Kimani's birthday, which was on Friday, and thought that the Raiders could win Kimani's game, but clearly they did not. So they've only done it twice. And every other time they've lost. So I thought there was a good chance to get this one, especially once Mariota was announced as the quarterback and Jaden was going to be out. I thought, man, this Raiders team has been playing pretty decent, coming off a tough loss against the Chargers, but they're playing pretty good. They'll be able to find a way to get it done. Not so much, but a fantastic call, man. I do really appreciate that. Appreciate all the feedback that I got, and from Friday throughout the whole course of the weekend, as a matter of fact, all the, love and support and everything. That was awesome. Means a lot to me, means a lot to the fam. So, like I said, we definitely appreciate that. But that's going to do it for today's show. Today is going to be the first day that we're on Fox 5 here locally, the TV station. Matter of fact, it's going to be at 12:30. It's going to be, 11:30, 12. Yeah, 11:30 is Locked On A's. 12 is going to be Locked On Golden Knights. And then I guess they're saving the best for last. Locked On Raiders will be at 12:30. SSSEN. Yeah, there you go. Silver State Sports and Entertainment Network. Man, you want to talk about a mouthful when you say those letters. SSSEN. Channel 5.2. I actually do it better the second time. Cox Channel 125. Of course, YouTube, and this is on the YouTube page as well. But they have a YouTube, so it's all there. So just another way to get a couple more eyeballs or just a little bit more, notification or just people finding out about the show. So I say it at the beginning all the time. It continues to grow each and every day. Just another way that this is going to help hopefully continue to grow this show. So we get to talk to Pete Carroll a little bit later on this morning around 11:30. We don't have any Raiders squad show with Chantel Chan, Lincoln Kennedy, and myself today. We're actually going to do that tomorrow at the normal time, 7:30, because I have a dentist appointment. So if anyone knows, it's very hard to reschedule the time of your dentist appointment. So we just said, you know what, let's just go ahead and push it back till Tuesday. Give us another day. Plus, we'll be able to hear from Pete Carroll, so maybe we'll even have a better Raiders squad show on Tuesday. So I think that's all the housekeeping that I had to do. Yeah, okay, cool, I'm done. So that's all we got time for on today's show. But of course, we'll be back tomorrow with more calls and texts, more news and notes, and we'll have plenty of conversation as well. So until then, Raider Nation, take care of yourself, take care of your family, love on your family. Most importantly, as always, just win, baby.